thought he was untouchable with that cranberry red Chevelle SS454. Every Saturday morning, he'd fire up that big block just to remind everyone who owned the meanest machine around. That Chevy Rumble rattled windows 2 houses down, and he made sure everyone knew 454 cubic inches meant serious business. Then your friend's older brother rolled up in a plum-crazy purple Road Runner with 3 chrome air cleaners poking through the hood. When he fired up that 446 pack, the sound was like controlled explosions happening in perfect sequence. This Road Runner 446 pack versus Chevelle 454 LS5 drag race showdown pitted Chevrolet's refined big block against Mopar's wild triple carburetor fury. Coming up, we'll show you why 3 carburetors weren't just for show and the quarter-mile times that made Chevy owners question everything. The 454 LS5 represented everything Chevrolet learned about building big blocks that normal people could live with, while the legendary LS6 grabbed headlines with 450 horsepower. The LS5 was what most Chevelle buyers actually took home. Rated at 365 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque, the LS5 proved you didn't need racing exotica to move serious weight. Chevrolet designed this engine for guys who wanted legitimate muscle car performance without temperamental racing motor behavior. The LS5 used hydraulic lifters instead of the LS6's solid lifters, meaning quieter operation and easier maintenance. The compression ratio stayed reasonable at 10.25 to 1, allowing pump gas operation without detonation worries. Most importantly, the power band started early and stayed strong through the RPM range where people actually drove. At $215.20 over the base 402 engine, the LS5 was affordable muscle for working-class heroes. You could walk into any Chevrolet dealer, order one in your Chevelle SS, and drive home with a legitimate tire-smoking monster. Car and Driver managed 14.1 seconds at 103 miles per hour in a bone-stock example. Motor Trend did 13.8 seconds, noting the engine's broad torque curve made it effortlessly quick in real-world driving. While Chevrolet perfected civilized big blocks, Plymouth built something that belonged in a psychiatric facility for deranged engines. The 446 pack wasn't just about making power. It was about making a statement that subtlety was for import drivers. 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors on an Edelbrock aluminum intake wasn't just functional, it was automotive theater. When you mashed the throttle and those outboard carburetors opened up, the sound was pure mechanical violence. The 6-pack started with Chrysler's proven 440 big block, already one of the torquiest engines Detroit ever built. Then Plymouth's engineers asked, what happens if we feed this monster through 6 barrels instead of 4? The answer was 390 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, numbers that made other manufacturers check their math. That torque hit like a freight train at 2,800 RPM and kept pulling until 5,800 RPM. Plymouth rated the 6-pack conservatively because they knew what they'd unleashed. Independent dyno tests showed it actually making closer to 420 horsepower, explaining why 6-pack cars consistently outran their power-to-weight ratios suggested. When Hot Rod tested a 6-pack Road Runner, the results shocked everyone. 13.54 seconds at 105.6 miles per hour from a car that looked like a cartoon but performed like a professional dragster. The 6-pack system wasn't Plymouth throwing extra carburetors at an engine and hoping for best. This was sophisticated fuel delivery disguised as madness. The center carburetor handled normal driving duties, idling, cruising, light acceleration. It was essentially a standard 4-barrel that kept the engine civilized when you weren't melting tires. This meant the 6-pack could idle smoothly in traffic and cruise highways without drinking fuel like a battleship. The outer carburetors only opened under heavy throttle, when mechanical linkage told them the engine needed maximum airflow. When those 6 barrels opened simultaneously, the engine transformed from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde faster than your brain could process. This progressive system gave 6-pack engines the best of both worlds: reasonable fuel economy during normal driving and devastating power when needed. No other manufacturer figured out how to make a street engine this schizophrenic while keeping it reliable. When magazines compared the six-pack to single four-barrel 440s, results were dramatic. The six-pack setup was worth approximately 40 horsepower and 60 pound-feet of torque over comparable single-carburetor engines. Coming up, we'll show you what happened when Chevrolet's refined engineering met Plymouth's unhinged brilliance at the drag strip. August 1970, Martin, Michigan. The annual pure stock drags where factory muscle cars settle differences without excuses. In the left lane, a Chevelle SS 454 LS5 representing General Motors' sophisticated big block approach. In the right lane, a Road Runner 446 pack carrying Plymouth's reputation for barely controlled fury. The Chevelle owner looked confident, knowing he had 454 cubic inches of proven engineering. The Road Runner owner looked slightly unhinged, appropriate for someone who'd chosen to drive controlled explosions to the grocery store. When the Christmas tree dropped, both cars launched hard. The LS5's smooth power band pulled the Chevelle ahead in the first 100 feet, that refined torque curve doing exactly what Chevrolet's engineers designed. Then the six-pack's fury kicked in. Around the 200-foot mark, those outer carburetors opened completely, and the Road Runner started pulling alongside the Chevelle like it had found another gear physics textbooks hadn't mentioned. By the 8th mile marker, the Plymouth had pulled ahead. The finish line told the brutal truth. Road Runner, 13.41 seconds at 106.8 miles per hour. Chevelle, 13.89 seconds at 102.4 miles per hour. Word spread through the muscle car community like wildfire. The wildest-looking engine package on the market was also one of the fastest, outrunning big blocks with 64 more cubic inches. The six-pack's victory wasn't about peak horsepower. It was about how that power was delivered. While the LS5 made respectable torque throughout its range, the six-pack created a power band that felt like getting hit by lightning. The LS5's hydraulic cam and conservative compression created smooth, predictable power that built gradually. Great for daily driving, but not dramatic when you needed to embarrass the next lane. The six-pack's solid lifter cam and higher compression created a completely different personality. When those outer carburetors opened, the engine didn't just make more power, it transformed into something that sounded like it was tearing apart physics. Dyno tests revealed the real difference. The LS5 made peak torque around 3,200 RPM and held it fairly steady until 4,800 RPM. Respectable, but predictable. The six-pack made peak torque at 2,800 RPM, but more importantly created a torque spike when all six barrels opened worth an additional 75 pound-feet over single carburetor setups. That spike hit like a sledgehammer. Street racers figured this out quickly. The LS5 was smooth and consistent, making it easy to drive but predictable. The six-pack was violent and dramatic, harder to handle but impossible to ignore when it opened up completely. Production numbers told the story of how the market viewed these different approaches. Chevrolet built 34,362 LS5 engines in 1970, making it the most popular big block option in the Chevelle lineup. Plymouth built just 3,284 six-pack Road Runners in 1970, plus another 716 in the Superbird. The six-pack was rare not because Plymouth couldn't build more, but because most buyers weren't brave enough to handle what they'd unleashed. Both engines earned respect from the automotive press, but for different reasons. Road Test called the LS5 the thinking man's big block, praising its balance of performance and practicality. Hot Rod described the six-pack as controlled insanity that actually works. Street racers developed clear preferences based on priorities. If you wanted to win races consistently with minimum drama, you bought the LS5. If you wanted to terrify opponents and yourself simultaneously, you ordered the six-pack. The engine's reputations grew over time as owners shared experiences. LS5 Chevelle developed reputations as reliable performers that could be driven anywhere. Six-pack Road Runners became legends among people who understood the best muscle cars were slightly dangerous to operate. Today's collector car market reflects how these engines are remembered. A good LS5 Chevelle brings $45,000 to $65,000 at auction. Serious money for what was once considered the base big block option. A six-pack Road Runner commands $85,000 to $120,000, partly because of rarity, but mostly because collectors remember what it felt like when those outer carburetors opened up. The market rewards drama, and no engine package was more dramatic. Modern muscle car builders learned from both approaches. Today's Hellcat engines combine the six-pack's theatrical excess with modern reliability. The LT4 in the Camaro ZL1 follows the LS5's philosophy of refined brutality that works every day. The LS5 versus six-pack battle taught the industry there's room for different approaches to performance. Some customers want smooth, predictable power they can use daily. Others want maximum drama and don't care about consequences. Both engines succeeded because they understood their audiences perfectly and delivered exactly what those customers wanted. The muscle car era was big enough for gentlemen's express trains and barely legal street fighters. The Road Runner 446 pack versus Chevelle 454 LS5 Showdown wasn't just about cubic inches or carburetor counts. It was about two different ways of approaching the same goal. Chevrolet built refined brutality anyone could live with. Plymouth built unhinged fury only the brave could handle. The drag strips delivered their verdict in tire smoke and time slips, but both engines won in their own ways. The LS5 proved you could have serious performance without drama. The six-pack proved that sometimes drama is exactly what makes performance memorable. Which philosophy speaks to your soul? Do you respect the LS5's sophisticated approach, knowing it could deliver day after day without complaint? Or does the six-pack's theatrical excess call to the part of you that believes muscle cars should be slightly dangerous to operate? If this torque monster battle taught you something new about what made the muscle car era special, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Next week, we're diving into another legendary showdown that's been dividing enthusiasts since the Nixon administration. Thanks for riding along, and remember, in the muscle car world, it's not just how much torque you make, it's how dramatically you make it that people remember decades later.